I'm on my desktop and I want to create a new Rails application. So first I'll go into my terminal and I'm going to create this application in my home directory. You can create it wherever you'd like. For me, I'm just going to create it here. So the command that we'll want to type in here is Rails new and then the name of the application. For me, I'm going to call it Scare Me. And this is being an FMyLife clone. I'm not going to copy exactly what they're doing. I'm going to create an FMyLife, but instead of bad situations, I'm going to create scary stories. So people can post up their scary stories, and then folks will be able to upvote or downvote, and then comment on those stories. So I'm going to call my application Scare Me. You can copy me exactly if you'd like, or you can call it something else. But for me, I'm going to call it Scare Me. And the command that we'll also put in here, or the other option here, is the -T sign. And what that's going to do is to skip installing all of the testing framework for Rails. Because we're not going to do any sort of testing in this course, we don't need to generate all of those folders, any of those directories. We want to keep our application as lean as possible. And because we're not doing any testing, do the -T sign, and that'll skip the entire testing framework. So now when I press enter or return, it'll go through and create my Rails application. And so that takes a little bit, but you can see this is all of the folders that it's creating for us. So now that's done, we'll want to cd into your Rails application. And then for me, I'm going to open up my text editor, which is in Sublime, or is Sublime Text. And here in my terminal, I'm going to create another window and do a Rails S, and that'll start the Rails server for me. And now when I go to Chrome, here we are. So my Rails application has been successfully installed. Now the very first thing that I like to do is to create my user authentication. And the gem that we'll be using for that is Devise. And I like doing this right off the bat because almost every application is going to need user authentication, like a login and password for all of your users. And not only that, but it establishes the users table way early on in this application, so that when you're building out all of your other tables, which we'll be doing later on in this course, your users table is there, and you can create all of your applications, all of your associations and your references. You'll know what I mean by that when we get to that point. So in our gem file here, I just went ahead and deleted all of the comments. And below here, what we'll want to do is do gem devise. And now when we run bundle, that'll go through and install our application, all our Devise gem. And let me just cancel out of the Rails server. So it's always a good practice whenever you're making changes to the gem file and running a bundle to restart your Rails server. So that's bit me a few times. So you'll just always want to make sure, when in doubt, restart your Rails server. Great, so now that Devise is installed, let's go into Devise's Devise's GitHub page, and that'll show us how to install Devise. And it's very simple actually. So go down here, scroll to the bottom, and all we have to do is do Rails G Devise install. I'm going to cancel my Rails server right now. Good, and then we can just follow these steps right here. Need to have a root to a home index. Let's not do that yet. So we don't have to do any of these. Let's run this Rails G Devise views though. So what this does is, what the Devise views are, is just the sign in page, the sign up page, and the profile page and the forgot your password page. So this just generates all of those views for us in our application. And that way we can customize those and make those look prettier. And we'll cover that later on in the course as well. So press enter, it creates all of our views for us. Good. Now the next step is to generate a model. So Rails generate Devise model. And our model we're going to call user. So this is essentially our user table. So whoever logs in and creates a user account or an account, they're going to be all of our users. So we do that. Fantastic. Clear that out. And to clear out your terminal, if you don't like it, I like it being clean. Some people like to just have it show the entire history. For me, I'm on a Mac, it's just Command K. So good. That's it for installation. But we haven't really created the database yet. But before we do that, go into your text editor, and the file that you'll want to find is Devise create users. And just a side note, in order to get this search bar up here, for me in Sublime Text here, it's just Command T. So Command T, and then you can start typing in whatever file you want to edit. So here, I'll just know that Devise create users. This is what Devise created for us, this migration file. And what this does is it creates our users table. And Devise has created this for us. Now, one thing Devise doesn't have in the table is a name field. All it has is email, password, and a few of these other columns that are needed for Devise. But for us, let's go ahead and add in a name field. So we can say t.string : name before we run the migration or before we do a RakeDB migrate. And that is all that we'll need for now. You can leave all of this commented out. So now back in your terminal, do a RakeDB migrate. And this is what will run your migration files and actually create those tables in your database. So if you go into your schema, so I like looking and referencing the schema a lot whenever I'm building out a new application, and even just development in general. This will show us all of our tables. So right now all we have is the users table, which is perfectly fine. And then if we go into our routes folder here, let me just get rid of all of these comments. Oops. Devise added this into our routes folder here. So it gives us all of our routes, and we'll cover routes in a little bit here. So we have successfully created our new Rails application called Scare Me, and we've created our users table and implemented Devise, which is what we're going to use for our user authentication. So our users can log in, log out, click on a link if they forget their password to have a password resent to them. So now that we have that out of the way, and this is kind of just the initial setup, we'll begin creating all of our other tables and bringing together or connecting those tables together with associations.